Let me ask you something. Have you ever prayed for something so hard, so desperately, and then felt like God wasn't answering? You did everything right, you worked hard, you believed, but still, silence. I've been there. We've all been there. But let me tell you, just because you don't see it now doesn't mean God isn't working. See, our expectations are small compared to his vision. You might be asking for enough to get by, but God wants to give you more than enough. You might be praying for a breakthrough, but he's preparing you for an overflow. So don't leave. Don't stop listening now, because what I'm about to tell you might just change your life. Fear is the enemy of faith. It whispers in your ear, telling you that you're not good enough, that you'll never make it, that what you're praying for is impossible. But let me tell you something. Fear is a liar. See, fear will keep you stuck in the same place, making the same choices, living the same small life. It makes you hesitate when you should be stepping forward. It makes you settle for less when God has so much more for you. Fear tells you to hold back, but faith pushes you forward. Faith says, even when I don't see the way, I know God has already made it. Faith says, I don't have to have all the answers because I trust the one who does. Faith says, I refuse to let my doubts be bigger than my belief. And here's the thing, God is not limited by what you see, what you feel, or what the world says is possible. When you put your faith in him, you tap into a power that can move mountains, break chains, and open doors no man can shut. So the question is, are you going to let fear dictate your future, or are you going to trust in the power of God? Because the moment you choose faith over fear is the moment your life begins to change. You have a plan for your life. You have dreams, goals, and things you want to accomplish. But let me tell you something. What you have in mind for yourself is nothing compared to what God has in store for you. See, we think in human terms. We set limits based on what we see, what we know, what we've experienced. But God, he operates on an entirely different level. While you're thinking about getting a better job, God is preparing you for a career that will change lives. While you're hoping to just make it through the month, God is lining up blessings that will take care of you for years. The problem is, we often get frustrated when things don't go according to our plan. We think, God, why isn't this happening for me? Why am I struggling? Why am I still waiting? But what you don't see is that God is protecting you from something smaller to prepare you for something greater. When things don't go the way you expected, don't get discouraged, get excited. Because that means God is up to something bigger than you imagined. He is shifting things in your favor. He is setting you up for a breakthrough. He is making sure you don't settle for less when he has more. So stop worrying about the plan you had and start trusting in the plan he has. Because his plan is greater, his vision is bigger, and his blessings will always exceed your expectations. You prayed, you believed, you worked hard, and yet what you were hoping for still hasn't happened. You see others moving forward, getting their breakthroughs, walking into their blessings, and you're still stuck in the waiting. It's frustrating, isn't it? You start to wonder, did God forget about me? Am I not good enough? Is this ever going to happen? But let me tell you something powerful. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. Delayed is not denied. See, we live in a world of instant gratification. We want things now. We want success now. We want answers now. But God doesn't operate on our schedule. He doesn't rush just because we're impatient. His timing is perfect. And he knows exactly when to release his blessings into your life. Think about this. What if the very thing you're praying for, the thing you're waiting on, is bigger than you think? What if God is delaying it because he's preparing you for something far greater than what you originally asked for? What if he's making sure you're strong enough, ready enough, and positioned in the right place to not just receive it, but sustain it. A delay isn't a punishment, it's a setup. It's God making sure that when he blesses you, it's not temporary, it's life-changing. It's not just enough, it's more than enough. So instead of being discouraged in the waiting, start praising in advance. Start thanking God, not just for what's coming, but for the fact that when it arrives, it will be bigger, better, and beyond anything you ever imagined. Every struggle you go through has a purpose. Every tear you've cried, every hardship you've faced, every time you felt like giving up, it was all for a reason. But in the moment, it's hard to see that. When you're in the middle of the storm, all you feel is the pain, the frustration, the disappointment. You start questioning, why me? Why is this happening? Where is God in all this? But let me tell you something, God never wastes pain. He never allows you to go through something just for the sake of suffering. Every challenge, every trial, every setback is part of a bigger picture, a greater plan that he is working in your life. Look at the most successful, strongest, most faithful people you know. They didn't get there by walking an easy path. They got there because they went through the fire and came out stronger. They went through battles and developed unshakable faith. They faced obstacles, but instead of giving up, they pushed through. What you're going through right now, it's not meant to break you, it's meant to build you. It's strengthening your faith, sharpening your character, preparing you for what's coming next. Because the truth is, the bigger the struggle, the bigger the blessing on the other side. So instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Start asking God, what are you preparing me for? Because when you shift your mindset, when you start seeing your struggles as part of God's preparation, you'll begin to realize that every battle is actually making you ready for the victory he has already planned for you. Prayer is not just words. It's not just something you do when you're in trouble or when you need something. Prayer is power. It is direct communication with the God who created the universe, the one who holds all things together, the one who can open doors no man can shut. But here's the problem. Too many people treat prayer like a last resort instead of their first response. They try everything else, exhaust all their options, and when nothing works, they say, well, I guess all I can do now is pray. No. Prayer should be your first move, not your last resort. Because when you pray, things shift, chains break, mountains move. When you pray, you are calling on the most powerful force in existence. And the best part, God listens. He hears every word, every whisper, every cry. He's not distant. He's not ignoring you. He's right there, waiting for you to call on him. But prayer isn't just about asking, it's about believing. You have to pray with faith. You have to pray like you know your answer is on the way. Pray like you know God is already working on your behalf. Don't come to God with small, weak prayers. Come boldly, ask big, exceedingly, abundantly more than we ask or think. So if you feel stuck, if you feel lost, if you're facing something too big for you to handle, pray. Pray with confidence, pray with expectation, pray knowing that God's power is greater than any problem you're facing. And when you pray, don't just hope, believe. Because God is listening, and he's ready to do more than you ever imagined. We live in a world that runs on deadlines, schedules, and timelines. We expect things to happen fast. We want success now, answers now, breakthroughs now. But God doesn't work on human timelines. His timing is perfect, even when it doesn't match ours. How many times have you felt like God was taking too long? You prayed, you believed, you put in the effort, but nothing happened. You looked at other people getting their blessings and wondered, God, when is it my turn? You started doubting, wondering if maybe God forgot about you. But let me tell you something. A delay is not a denial. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. God is not ignoring you, He is preparing you. Sometimes the wait isn't about the blessing being ready, it's about you being ready for the blessing. Think about this. If you received everything you wanted right now, would you know how to handle it? Would you be strong enough, wise enough, disciplined enough to keep it? God knows what's best for you, and He knows exactly when to give it to you. His timing is never too early, never too late. It's always right on time. Look back at your life. Think about the moments when things didn't work out the way you wanted, but later you realize it was for the best. That's God's perfect timing at work. He knows what you need, when you need it, and how to bring it into your life in a way that will bless you, not burden you. So instead of being frustrated in the waiting, trust Him. Your blessing is coming. Your breakthrough is on the way. And when it arrives, it will be bigger, better, and more powerful than anything you ever imagined. Because God's timing is always perfect. Most people live their lives expecting only what they think is possible. They look at their circumstances, their bank account, their education, their connections, and they base their expectations on that. But let me tell you something. God is not limited by human logic. He is not restricted by what you see, what you have, or what's. When you serve a limitless God, you have to start expecting miracles. You have to believe that He can do what no man can do, that He can make a way where there is no way, that He can turn your impossible into a testimony. But here's the problem. Too many people pray small prayers. They ask for just enough to get by, just enough to survive. But God is not a just enough God. He is a God of overflow, a God of abundance, a God who doesn't just meet your expectations, He exceeds them. Think about this. When Jesus fed the 5,000, He didn't just give them enough food to hold them over. He multiplied the bread and fish so much that there were leftovers. That's the kind of God we serve. One who gives in abundance. One who blesses beyond what we can imagine. So let me ask you, what are you expecting from God? Are you expecting small blessings? Or are you believing for something greater? Are you asking for what you think is possible? Or are you trusting God for the impossible? If you want to see miracles in your life, you have to start expecting miracles. You have to pray with boldness, believe without doubt, and trust that God is working behind the scenes even when you can't see it. Because when you expect great things from God, He will show up in ways you never dreamed. Don't limit Him. Expect the miraculous. And watch Him do what only He can do. Faith isn't just about believing, it's about doing. It's about taking action even when you don't see the full picture, even when you don't know how things will work out. Because faith without action is just wishful thinking. Too many people say they have faith, but they stay stuck, waiting for God to drop everything into their laps. They pray for opportunities, but don't take steps toward them. They ask for open doors, but refuse to walk forward. They say they trust God, but their actions don't show it. But real faith moves. Real faith steps out before the answer comes. Look at the story of Peter walking on water. Jesus told him to come, and Peter didn't wait to see if the water would turn solid beneath his feet. He just stepped out, and in that moment, the impossible became possible because he took action on his faith. Maybe you're waiting for a sign, for absolute certainty before you move forward. But faith doesn't work that way. Faith means trusting that God will catch you before you fall, that he will provide before you run out, that he will guide you even when you don't have all the answers. Some of you have been praying for a breakthrough, but God is saying, move first. Take that step. Make that call. Start that business. Apply for that job. Forgive that person. Do what faith requires and watch God meet you at your step of obedience. Because when you take action in faith, you're not just proving to God that you trust him. You're putting yourself in position to receive the blessing he has been preparing for you all along. Move in faith and watch God do the impossible. Your words have power. What you speak over your life, your situation, and your future shapes the reality you live in. Too many people talk themselves out of their own blessings because of the way they speak. They say things like, I'll never be successful. This problem is too big. I'm always going to struggle. And without realizing it, they are prophesying their own defeat. But here's the truth. Your words activate either faith or fear. When you speak negativity, doubt, and limitation, you are giving power to the very things that are holding you back. But when you speak life, when you declare God's promises over your situation, you open the door for miracles. Look at what the Bible says. Life and death are in the power of the tongue. Proverbs 18:21. That means your words have the power to create or to destroy, to build or to tear down. What you say about yourself, your future, your family, it matters. Instead of saying, I can't, start saying, with God, all things are possible. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, start saying, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Instead of saying, I'm stuck, start declaring, God is making a way for me. When you speak in faith, even before you see the results, you activate God's power in your life. Don't just pray, proclaim. Don't just hope, declare. Speak victory, speak breakthrough, speak abundance. Because the words you speak today will shape the life you live tomorrow. Change your words, and you will change your future. Obstacles are a natural part of life, but they don't have to define your journey. The challenges you face aren't there to stop you. They're there to prepare you, shape you, and build you into someone stronger, wiser, and more resilient than you were before. Every time you encounter a difficulty, you have two choices. You can either let it defeat you, or you can use it as a stepping stone to rise higher. When challenges come your way, it's easy to get discouraged. You look at the mountain ahead, and it feels impossible to climb. You wonder how you'll ever get through it, but let me tell you, that mountain is not there to block you. It's there to show you how strong you are. Think about the story of David and Goliath. David was just a young shepherd boy with a slingshot, and Goliath was a giant warrior with armor and weapons far stronger than anything David had. It seemed impossible, but David didn't back down. He didn't let the size giant scare him. Instead, he used what he had, the slingshot, and the faith that God was with him to defeat the giant. Your obstacles are the same way. What you see as a limitation is often a tool that God will use to help you overcome. Maybe you don't have all the resources you think you need, but what you do have is faith, determination, and God's power. Don't look at the challenges and think they're too big to handle. Look at them and remember that you're bigger than they are because you have God on your side. Every obstacle you face is an opportunity for growth. It's an invitation to trust God more deeply, to lean into his strength, and to show yourself what you're truly capable of. You can't let obstacles define you. You have to define your response to them. So instead of saying, this is too much for me, start saying, with God I can do all things. Every challenge is an opportunity for victory. You are destined to overcome. God is always working behind the scenes, even when you can't see it. Often we focus so much on what we can see, what's happening right in front of us, that we forget that there is a bigger picture being put together that we can't fully grasp yet. We pray, we hope, we work hard, but the results don't always show up when we expect them. And in those moments, we begin to wonder, is God even listening? Is he doing anything at all? The truth is, God is always working, even in the moments when it feels like nothing is happening. He is moving in ways you can't see, preparing things that haven't even entered your mind yet. He's aligning people, situations, and opportunities in your favor in ways that you can't even imagine. Just because you don't see the evidence doesn't mean he's not working. Think about Joseph in the Bible. His dreams were big. He had a vision for his life that seemed so far away, so impossible, especially when he was sold into slavery, thrown into prison, and left in seemingly hopeless situations. Yet in the background, God was orchestrating everything, setting up the perfect moment for Joseph to rise to power in Egypt. Joseph couldn't see it, but God was working behind the scenes, arranging every detail in his favor. God works like that in our lives too. Sometimes we can't see the doors he's opening, the connections he's making, the favor he's giving us. But that doesn't mean he isn't moving. God's timing is always perfect. Even when it feels like things are delayed, he is preparing you, positioning you, and working things out for your good. The pieces are falling into place, even if you can't see the whole puzzle yet. When you feel like you're stuck or waiting too long for something, remember, God is always working on your behalf, even when you can't see it. Trust his process. Trust his timing. And know that when the time is right, everything will fall into place in ways that will amaze you. So keep the faith, keep moving forward, keep trusting, because God is always at work in the background, and his work is always for your good. When you face uncertainty, doubt, and fear, it's easy to feel like everything is out of control. You might feel like you've done everything right, prayed, worked hard, stayed faithful, and yet nothing seems to be falling into place. In those moments, it's easy to question God's plan for your life. But what I want you to understand is that sometimes the blessing you're waiting for is actually hidden behind the challenge you're facing. Think about the process of refining gold. When gold is pulled out of the earth, it's not pure. It's mixed with dirt, rocks, and other impurities. But to make the gold pure, it has to be put into the fire. The heat melts the gold, separating it from the impurities, and what's left is something beautiful and precious. The fire doesn't destroy the gold, it refines it. Your challenges, your struggles, and the trials you go through are the fire in your life. They don't define you, they refine you. God uses those hard seasons to strip away the things that are holding you back, to purify your heart and to strengthen your faith. When you face difficulties, you may not see it in the moment, but God is working in the fire to bring something greater out of it. You might be in a season right now that feels uncomfortable, that feels overwhelming. You might be wondering why things are so hard. But let me remind you, the difficulty is part of your destiny. The fire is part of your preparation for the greatness God has in store for you. The struggle you're facing right now is shaping you into the person you need to be to carry the blessing he's going to give you. It's easy to want to avoid the fire, to escape the struggle. But when you trust God through the process, when you lean into him during the tough times, you will emerge stronger, wiser, and more equipped for what's ahead. God is refining you, not to break you, but to build you into someone who can handle the greatness He's preparing for you. So don't run from the challenges. Don't give up in the fire. Trust that God is at work, refining you into the person you're meant to be, and know that on the other side of the struggle is a blessing that you're being prepared to receive. Keep pressing forward. Keep trusting, because your breakthrough is coming, and you will emerge from this season better than ever. God's power is greater than anything you're facing right now. The obstacles, the difficulties, the things that feel impossible in your life, they are no match for the power of God. But here's the thing. You have to believe that God's power is bigger than your problem. Too often we allow our circumstances to dictate our faith. We look at the size of our challenges and start to feel small. We begin to think that our problems are bigger than our God, and we get overwhelmed. We think, this is too much for me, or I can't handle this. And in doing so, we forget who is standing with us. The God who created the universe, the God who made everything out of nothing, the God who parted seas and raised the dead. That's the same God who is with you right now. There's nothing too big for God. Your financial struggles, not too big for him. Your health battles, not too big for him. Your relationship challenges, not too big for him. Your fears, doubts, and insecurities, they're no match for the God who holds all power in his hands. The Bible says in Ephesians 3:20, now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. That means God's power is at work within you, and he is able to do far more than you could ever think or dream. The question isn't whether God has the power to fix your situation. The question is, do you believe his power is bigger than your problem? You see, when you truly believe that God's power is greater than your circumstances, you start to see the impossible as possible. You start to step forward in faith, knowing that God is working behind the scenes. You stop focusing on the size of the mountain and start focusing on the size of your God. So today I challenge you, stop magnifying your problems and start magnifying your God. Speak over your life, your situation, your challenges with the belief that God's power is greater, because when you do that, you will start seeing God move in ways that will leave you in awe. God's power is limitless, and when you trust in it, there is nothing that can stand in your way. One of the most powerful truths you can embrace is that God's plans for your life are far greater than your own. We spend so much time focusing on what we want, what we think we need, and how we think things should go. But God has a bigger vision, a higher purpose, and a greater destiny than we can ever imagine. Sometimes we want something so badly that we can't see beyond our own desires. We focus on what's right in front of us and forget that God sees the whole picture. Think about the story of Abraham and Sarah. God promised them a child when they were well past the age of bearing children. It seemed impossible. But God's promise wasn't just about giving them a child. It was about giving them a lineage that would impact generations. He was working on a plan that was bigger than Abraham and Sarah's immediate desire. The blessing wasn't just for them. It was for the world. Sometimes the things you're praying for, the doors you're trying to open, the opportunities you want to seize, they may not be part of God's greater plan for you, and that's okay. When things don't go as expected, when the answer is no, or when the doors seem to stay closed, trust that God is redirecting you to something far better, something that aligns with his perfect purpose for your life. There are times when we pray for one thing, but God has something far greater in store. We ask for temporary fixes, but he wants to bless us with something eternal. We pray for something small, but he is preparing us for something much bigger. God's no is not rejection, it's redirection. He is always working behind the scenes, aligning you with his perfect plan. What if what you're experiencing right now is part of that bigger plan? What if the closed doors, the detours, and the delays are actually God positioning you for something greater than you've ever dreamed? So when things don't go according to your plan, don't be discouraged. Trust that God is in control. His plans for you are beyond anything you can imagine, and He is leading you step by step into a future filled with His blessings, His purpose, and His glory. You may not understand it all right now, but rest in the fact that God's plan is bigger, better, and more beautiful than anything you could ever dream up. Keep trusting, keep believing, because God's plan for your life is greater than anything you could ask or imagine. When you step into the unknown, when you're asked to take a leap of faith, there's always a moment of fear and uncertainty, the fear of what could go wrong, the doubt about whether you're making the right decision, and the anxiety of stepping outside of your comfort zone. But let me tell you, faith is not the absence of fear. Faith is the decision to move forward in spite of it. The Bible tells us, for we live by faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians 5:7. This means that faith is about trusting in the unseen, the things you can't control, the things that don't make sense in the natural. It's about trusting God's promises even when you can't see the outcome. Imagine what it must have been like for the Israelites as they stood before the Red Sea. The Egyptian army was closing in, and there seemed to be no way out. It looked impossible. But in that moment, God asked them to do something that required absolute trust. He told them to step forward into the waters. They had to take a step of faith before they could see the miracle. That's the way faith works. God isn't going to show you the full picture all at once. He's not going to give you the complete blueprint before you start. What He asks is that you trust Him enough to take the first step even when you can't see the way forward. Think about your own life. What is God asking you to step into today? Is it a new opportunity, a new job, a new relationship, or maybe a new challenge that seems too big for you? It might be scary, it might seem overwhelming. But here's the truth. If God has called you to it, He will provide for it. Your job is to step out in faith, to trust that He will show up as you move forward. Faith doesn't mean there won't be challenges. It doesn't mean the journey will be easy. But it means that when you step out, God will meet you in the middle of it. He will provide the strength, the wisdom, and the courage you need to keep going. So don't let fear keep you stuck. Step out in faith. Trust that God will guide you. Trust that He is with you every step of the way. When you move in faith, even when the path ahead is unclear, you are positioning yourself for God to do what only He can do, turning the impossible into the possible. When you take that first step, you open the door for miracles. Keep going and watch how God leads you to places you never thought possible. One of the most powerful things you can do in life is to embrace the fact that you are not defined by your past mistakes. So often we carry around the weight of our failures, our regrets, and the things we wish we could change. We think that our past disqualifies us from the future God has planned for us. But here's the truth. God does not judge you based on your past. He sees your potential, your heart, and your future. Every one of us has a history. Every one of us has faced struggles, made poor decisions, and experienced setbacks. But those mistakes do not define you. They are merely chapters in your story. Your story is still being written, and God can use every part of it, even the broken parts, for His glory. Think about the Apostle Paul. Before he became one of the greatest leaders in the early church, he was Saul, persecuting Christians, causing harm, and doing things that were completely against God's will. Yet God didn't let his past determine his future. God transformed him, and Saul became Paul, a mighty instrument in God's hands. God didn't see Paul for what he had done. He saw Paul for what he could become. God's grace is bigger than any mistake. No failure is too great to be redeemed by the love and power of God. You may have failed in the past, but that doesn't mean you're destined to fail forever. You may have made mistakes, but those mistakes are not the end of your story. God has a plan for your life, and your past is. When you let go of the shame, guilt, and regret from your past, you free yourself to step into the future God has for you. Your mistakes do not disqualify you, they qualify you for God's grace. The more you embrace His forgiveness, the more you realize that you are not who you were, you are who God says you are. Today, release the weight of your past. Don't let it hold you back from the future God has in store for you. Embrace His forgiveness, trust in His plan, and move forward with confidence. Your best days are ahead of you, and your past has no power over the incredible future God has designed for you. Keep your eyes on Him and let Him guide you to the new life He has promised. And gratitude is one of the most powerful attitudes you can cultivate in your life. It has the ability to change your perspective, your mindset, and ultimately your circumstances. When you choose to be grateful, even in the midst of challenges, it shifts your focus from what you lack to what you have, from what's going wrong to what's going right. Gratitude is not about denying the difficulties in your life. It's about choosing to see the good, even when life is hard. So often we get caught up in the things we don't have, the dreams we haven't reached, the goals we haven't accomplished, the problems we still face. But the truth is, when we focus only on what we don't have, we miss out on the countless blessings that are already present in our life. Gratitude opens your eyes to the abundance you already have. And when you focus on what you have, it increases your joy, your peace, and your sense of purpose. Think about the story of the 10 lepers in the Bible. Jesus healed all 10 of them, but only one came back to thank Him. 9 of them received a miracle, but only one took the time to express gratitude for it. That one act of gratitude brought a deeper level of healing, not just physical, but emotional and spiritual healing as well. When we fail to express gratitude, we not only miss the opportunity to honor God, but also deny ourselves the fullness of His blessings. Gratitude keeps our hearts open to receive more. When you thank God for what you have, you invite more of His favor, more of His blessings, and more of His peace into your life. Gratitude aligns your heart with God's heart. It acknowledges that everything you have is a gift from Him, and it deepens your connection with Him. Being grateful also changes your perspective on the challenges you face. When you can thank God for the lessons, the growth, and the opportunities that come from adversity, you can approach life with a sense of peace, knowing that God is using everything in your life for good. Gratitude turns problems into opportunities for growth, understanding, and deeper faith. Today, take a moment to pause and reflect on all the things you can be grateful for. Thank God for your health, for your family, for your home, for your job, for the air in your lungs, and for the strength to keep going. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's missing to what's abundant. And when you choose to be grateful, you open the door for even more blessings to flow into your life. It's easy to get caught up in the race of life, constantly striving for success, recognition, or a sense of achievement. We often measure our worth by how much we've accomplished, how far we've come, or how much we've earned. But the truth is, God is not interested in your success as the world defines it. He's interested in your heart, your faith, and your willingness to live according to His purpose for your life. Success, as the world sees it, is often temporary. It's about titles, accomplishments, and material wealth, things that can fade away. But true success is found in living a life aligned with God's will, a life of purpose, service, and love. When you live for God's glory and not your own, When you focus on serving others and making a difference, you tap into a success that goes far beyond anything the world can offer. Take a look at the example of Jesus. He didn't live for personal gain. He didn't chase titles or seek wealth. His life was marked by humility, service, and sacrifice. He showed us that true greatness is found in giving, not in taking, in serving others, not in being served. The greatest among us, according to Jesus, are the ones who choose to humble themselves, to serve, and to love without expectation of reward. In the same way, your success isn't defined by how much you can accumulate or how far you can climb up the ladder. Your success is measured by how closely you follow God's purpose for your life, how faithfully you serve, and how deeply you love those around you. You may not have the world's idea of success, but if you are living in God's will, you have the only kind of success that truly matters. When you focus on God's purpose and not your own ambition, you will find that success looks very different. It's about finding peace in your heart, joy in your relationships, and fulfillment in knowing that you are walking the path God has set before you. True success is about loving God and loving people, about fulfilling the purpose He has called you to, and about living with integrity and faith. So let go of the pressure to measure up to the world's standards of success. You are already successful in God's eyes when you live a life of faith, humility, and love. The world may define success by what you have or what you achieve, but God defines it by who you are and how you live. Live for Him, serve others, and trust that true success will follow.